are plenty of decisions to be made regarding the Philadelphia Phillies as they face a pivotal offseason as they seek to get back to their World Series aspirations. Now, at the top of the list for which decisions must be made has to do with the outfield, as at this current state, there is no clue for what that starting lineup will look like heading into next season. Well, MLB GMs across the league are beginning to meet up and have their offseason discussions, and we're starting to get some leakouts for what the plan could potentially be. So we want to highlight this article from Todd Zalecki that gives a little bit of a in the know for what is being said from Dave Dombrowski to these other general managers at this stage of the game. Going to dive into that and what this Phillies team could look like. But before I do exactly that, do want to remind you guys, as always, to make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. That 73.1% of you guys watch these videos have not subscribed to us at Phillies Digest just yet. We are just hitting to the hot part of the offseason. There's going to be a lot of news coming soon, and we're going to be all over it right here on the channel. So make sure you guys are tapped in as well. Now, to get into the topic of today, do want to start off with this article from Todd Zalecki here with the headline, Fixing the Phil's Outfield Issues in Focus as GM Meetings Get Underway. And this did pique my interest a little bit, and to dive right into things, that the article starts out, says Phillies President of Baseball Operations Dave Dombrowski and company are in Las Vegas this week for the GM meetings where organizations lay the groundwork for the winter. Bringing back Kyle Schwarber and JT Realmuto leads the Phillies' to-do list, but they will need to do more than re-sign Schwarber and Realmuto if they want to win the World Series. If they want to revamp the offense, they can and should reshape the outfield. They should leave Las Vegas with a better sense of the possibilities. They already know their shortcomings. Phillies outfielders ranked 19th in baseball this season with a 710 OPS. They had a 708 OPS in 2024. Since 1992, Phillies outfield had worse production than the 24 and 25 clubs in only 2014, 2015, and 2016, which were obviously some dark days of Phillies baseball. Those groups included Obdul Herrera, Ben Revere, Cody Ashley, Adam Ether, Peter Borjos, Grady Sizemore, and others. Not exactly the stellar list that we should be comparing to. This year's group included Nick Castellanos with a 694 OPS and Max Kepler with a 691 OPS. Castellanos and Kepler were supposed to be everyday players on the corners, but they finished the season platooning together in right. Neither is expected back in 2026. Now, to interject here, obviously different situations for each of these guys. As Kepler was essentially a one-year flyer type, a dude that I saw stylistically why he was worth taking a chance on, but it did not work out. I do give Kepler some credit for battling through some struggles this season. He had a really rough start to the year and found a way to really play his best baseball as the season progressed on. He still did not live up to what the expectations were, but this was a guy who I think gave it everything he had, and it didn't quite work out here in Philadelphia. Wishing him the best elsewhere. Now, for Nick Castellanos here, a dude who I think everyone will leave with a bit more of a sour taste in their mouth. Now, I'm a Nick Castellanos defender, but the most notable part of this story is he's still got $20 million and one season on his contract. And this is addressed in the next portion of the article, which states, there could be clarity on Castellanos' situation before the end of the week. The Phillies have tried to trade Castellanos in each of the past two winters, but they were unsuccessful. It should be easier to part ways and swallow his contract as he enters the final year of a 5-year, $100 million deal. Now, to touch on Castellanos as a whole, looking at his production on the season, he had 17 home runs, 72 RBIs, a 294 on-base percentage, a 400 slugging percentage there, had 32 walks, 137 hits across his 547 at-bats there, and added 133 strikeouts. For Nick Castellanos directly here, he is exactly who he is, man. He's going to give you what he's got, but what he's got isn't exactly the style of play that equates to the most winning form of baseball. He's going to swing at bad pitches. He's going to strike out a ton. He's going to be limited in the field. But the plays that he can get to in the outfield, he will make. He will come through with a couple of clutch hits. He did deliver in the postseason for this team on several occasions. I do not want that to be completely overshadowed and forgotten here. That you cannot just move on from Nick Castellanos. There has to be some form of upgrade. I was a bit surprised at how heavily that it formed into the platoon at the conclusion of the season. That for the better part of the first half of the year, that things changed, that it was no longer Nick Castellanos, the clear-cut everyday starter. And a lot of that had to do with the arrival of Harrison Bader. And to highlight his stats from the season, Bader posting the most complete season of his career in which he tallied 17 home runs, 54 RBIs, a 347 on-base percentage, had 448 at-bats, tallied hits in 124 of those, a 449 slugging percentage there. A guy that I think made this outfield make a ton of sense and is tied into this equation as well. So to continue on with the article, it writes, Castellanos was benched in June in Miami for inappropriate behavior in the dugout after Phillies manager Rob Thomson removed him from a game for defensive purposes. Castellanos again expressed his frustrations with Thomson in September. In 4 seasons with the Phillies, Castellanos has slashed .260, .306, and .462 with a 732 OPS and 100 OPS plus, meaning he has been a league average offensive player. His minus 32 outs above average were 7th lowest over those 4 seasons out of 267 qualified player. This season, Castellanos finished last out of 145 qualified players with a negative 0.6 F WAR and negative 1.0 B WAR. If Castellanos isn't back, it would leave 3 players listed as outfielders on the Phillies' 40-man roster: Brandon Marsh, Johan Rojas, and Weston Wilson. This list doesn't include the infielder/outfielder Otto Kemp, who is on the 40-man but played only 12 games with 8 starts in left field, including Game 2 of the NLDS. It doesn't include number 3 pick Justin Crawford, who isn't on the 40-man roster. Dombrowski strongly suggested last month that Crawford would have the inside track to make the opening day roster. It doesn't include the first baseman Bryce Harper, who said a couple of times this year that he would return to the outfield if the Phillies acquired the right back, i.e. a significant impact bat to hit in the middle of the lineup. Now, to interject on the Harper point, I understand the lineup versatility that it could provide for shifting this guy back to an outfield. I appreciate Bryce Harper saying all the right things as far as he's willing to play the outfield, whatever the team needs, whatever can maximize this Phillies team as a whole. I also just don't see a world where it makes a ton of sense to move him back to the outfield. But I think there has to be cooler heads prevail. Let's have some common sense here. And the best way to preserve this guy for his career is to keep him at first base. And by the way, he's turned into a damn good first baseman in a very short amount of time here. It is completely fine with me to lock him into that position. I understand that you can make a case for adding bats like Pete Alonso and, create this different vision for this Phillies roster. But I think to preserve the best version of Bryce Harper, it involves keeping him at first base. I even would go as far as to say that I would try and DH him a little bit more often than is the case. But I don't think moving him back out of the outfield is the solution that this team needs, even though I get the appeal there. Now, to continue on a little bit more with this article, as I do want to highlight the final part here, which states, this list doesn't include free agents Harrison Bader and Schwarber, who played 8 games with 4 starts in left field. There are multiple ways the Phillies could go from here. They could re-sign Bader, who last week declined his side of a $10 million mutual option. That would give them another right-handed bat and a true center fielder. Crawford can make the opening day roster and play left or center. Crawford and Marsh could play left and center if Bader isn't back. Ultimately, the Phillies will need to look outside of there for help. There are big free agents out there, like Kyle Tucker and Cody Bellinger, who seem unlikely unless Schwarber signs elsewhere. There are also more complimentary/platoon free agents like Rob Reisdorf and Austin Hayes on the market too. Not really digging the concept of an Austin Hayes rerun, although he wasn't as bad as I think he is in a lot of people's memories during his brief time here. The kidney injury was really bizarre, but nonetheless, the article continues. Then there are potential trades. Would Byron Buxton finally waive his no-trade clause to get out of Minnesota? The Red Sox have a surplus of outfielders, so Jarren Duran could be on the move. The Phillies expressed interest in Cleveland's Stephen Kwan in July, but the Guardians asked for too much. Dombrowski is scheduled to talk with reporters later today. Perhaps he will offer a few clues then. Now, I don't expect Dave Dombrowski to put his cards on the table just yet. I think it is fairly obvious that the outfield is a position of work. And I do think, in contrast to pretty much the rest of this Phillies roster, that when you look at ways that you can actually improve this team, the outfield is the clear and obvious answer to me. This is not like third base, where Alec Boehm is landlocked. Trey Turner, who you have under contract for the next decade. Bryson Stott, who you have these hopes can continue growing. Bryce Harper is obviously a key part of this team. The outfield is a canvas that this team can still paint. Now, the number one point that I do want to make clear here, my fear is that Justin Crawford is going to be thrown into a very unfair position by being expected to be an impact player right from day one in the clear-cut top left fielder. There's a world where that works out perfectly, that Justin Crawford has done as well as he possibly could throughout his minor league career, that he has looked the part of a legitimate major league player and a guy that I think deserved an opportunity before what this upcoming season is. I also kind of feel if the Phillies truly thought that way, they would have made it happen this year. While Max Kepler was struggling, while Nick Castellanos was having his little rift with Rob Thomson there, we never saw Justin Crawford get a sniff of the majors. Now, you can make the case, and there is logic to the standpoint of they want to maximize team control and make sure they're not, kicking or extending or pushing forward that timeline for when those contracts do come around and arbitration years and everything that comes with it. But you also play the best players, and we did not see him get the call-up at any point this season. I think it would have been unfair to him to throw him onto a team with World Series aspirations and expect him to be an impact bat as well, but that's going to be more or less the same spot this year. there's got to be one impact bat that I do think they go out and get. I do not think it is going to be a Kyle Tucker, who's coming off, even by his standards, a lower tier year, but still delivered 22 home runs, 73 RBIs, was an all-star across his 500 at-bats, had 133 hits there, only struck out 88 times, which is a pleasant change, a 464 slugging percentage there. I don't think it is going to quite be a Kyle Tucker level of move. I'm certainly open to Harrison Bader coming back and think that makes a lot of sense. That I do wonder if maybe they take the tactic of, do we take a couple different flyers on guys and see how this all gels together, whether it is Bader, bringing another bat, something like that concept. But I don't think we should put all the eggs into just Justin Crawford as the surefire left fielder. We got to figure out the rest of the piece as well. Even Johan Rojas is far from a sure thing, man. We know the limitations that come with this. I need a name. I need a Steven Kwan. And Kwan's probably the number one guy that would fire me up. I like Kwan at the deadline. I do think he would be a positive addition. I know the market price was too high at the time, but it does feel like outfield is going to be a position of target for Dave Dombrowski and really the biggest chance to upgrade this team to a notable extent. So we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments. I love that there is some building momentum from internally in the Phillies, speaking about this at the front office meetings right here with Dave Dombrowski, making this quite clear. And I do think we should have some news from that in the coming days. How they handle the Castellanos situation, what the fallout for that is financially, I think will play a role in all of these conversations. And I do expect that to resolve itself before we start hearing the whispers of names. But do want to hear from you guys in the comments. Appreciate you guys tuning in the video as always. If you have not just yet, make sure you are smashing that subscribe button. At this point in time, only 26.9% of you guys watching these videos have subscribed to the channel just yet. This is an incredibly important offseason for this Phillies team. We're going to be all over things from start to finish. So make sure you tag along with us. The best way by doing though is by hitting that button, dropping your comments below, hitting a like on this video, and I'll be back to talk with you next time. Peace.